What's going on, Broncos country? Coming up on today's show, Denver released a quarterback, so we'll break down that news and recap everything you need to know. And then I want to take you behind the scenes as Albert Breer from Sports Illustrated had an excellent article where he detailed everything that went into the Bo Nix selection. But first, some news here, as Jeremy Fowler was the first one to report that the Broncos have released quarterback Ben DiNucci. And I'm not too surprised by this, really. DiNucci was fighting for a practice squad spot at best. But after the additions of Bo Nix and Zach Wilson within a week, I think Denver doesn't want to have a crowded quarterback room. Like, sometimes you see teams try to get 4 quarterbacks just to help get the drills and get the OTAs and minicamp and training camp practices moving along. But Denver does not want to steal reps away from Stidham, Nix, or Wilson so they can figure out who the quarterback 1, 2, and 3 are on this team just to have it go to a meaningless, Ben DiNucci. But I'm just going to come out right now and say I'm a bit of a sicko, and I don't know if you guys feel the same way because we just looked at that quarterback depth chart, and ask around the NFL, they're going to say it's the worst quarterback room. But personally, I'm kind of excited for this quarterback battle. Like, it's not filled with a bunch of great historical names. Like, Zach Wilson hasn't showed us a lot of good things to be optimistic about. Jarrett Stidham is very young in his NFL starting quarterback career, just 4 starts on under his belt, and Bo Nix is a rookie. But I'm very excited to see how this all unfolds. Like, who's QB1, who's QB2, who's QB3, because I don't know if there's any other quarterback room in the NFL where the QB3 has this high of a chance of being the week 1 starter. And it's not a very high chance for Zach Wilson, but it's a lot higher than every other QB3 in the National Football League. So, of course, all eyes are on Bo Nix to be this team's starting quarterback, and inevitably that's going to happen. That's not a question. There's no debate here. The question is, when does that happen, right? Does it happen as soon as training camp opens up? Does it happen right before week 1? Like, we've seen a lot of quarterbacks get taken in round 1, not start week 1. Baker Mayfield, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert. But then we've seen guys like Bryce Young last year who really early in training camp was crowned QB1, no question about it. So Bo Nix is definitely going to have to earn that top spot. He'll have to take it away from Jarrett Stidham, who is kind of fighting a two-front war right now, right? He's got the Americans to the west and the Russians to the east because Zach Wilson is also competing for the backup job. So Jarrett Stidham is in a weird position where he's trying to fend off Bo Nix for the starting quarterback job, and he's also trying to fend off Zach Wilson just in case he loses the starting job. He's still the backup on this team. So I feel a little bit bad for Stidham. He is in a two-front war at the moment. But my prediction on May 8th, Jarrett Stidham will start week 1 for the Denver Broncos. Bo Nix will replace him early in the 2024 season. And Zach Wilson is the QB3 on this roster all season long. And Denver keeps 3 quarterbacks in their quarterback room for all 17 weeks, barring any injuries, which I'm sure that's going to happen because it's the NFL. So that's my prediction right now. I know it sounds like it's super easy just to crown Bo Nix the starter, but I think it is Jarrett Stidham's job to lose. And I don't know if we're going to see anything in training camp where Nix just wows the coaching staff, because training camp is usually a spot where you can wow the coaching staff with your athletic ability, right? That's where you see those viral, 15-second videos from training camp appear. Bo Nix doesn't have that necessarily. He's going to win the job one day because of what he does in the huddle, at the line of scrimmage, smart with the football. And those are things that pop up in training camp, but they don't necessarily overcome the God-given athletic abilities. And that's not something Bo Nix carries into training camp as whoa, look at this guy. He's the fastest, or he's got the strongest arm we've seen from any prospect in the last 5 years. Now, who do you think will be the week 1 starter? Bo Nix, Jarrett Stidham, and I'll toss Zach Wilson on there. Zach Wilson's family may be watching right now. Maybe one of his friends' moms is watching. So, week 1 starter, Nix, Stidham, or Wilson. Now, next up on the show, I want to talk about how Bo Nix became a Bronco, because Albert Breer from Sports Illustrated, he went in detail about how J.J. McCarthy, Michael Penix, and Bo Nix all landed with their respective ball clubs. So let's start things off by acknowledging that Sean Payton wanted a small circle. The article opens up with, and we're going to go in depth on some parts of the article, about how I beg your pardon, Sean Payton was in New Orleans in 2017. Drew Brees was like, hey, can me and my buds come watch the NFL draft from the Saints War Room? And Sean Payton's like, sure, no problem. Awkward conversation we're going to have, though, because I want to take Patrick Mahomes. Ultimately, that did not happen. The Chiefs leapfrogged the Saints. They took him at 10. But from there, Sean Payton's like, I want to keep this a very small circle. So the only people that really knew where Denver stood on the quarterbacks were Sean Payton, George Payton, and CEO Greg Penner. They did not want any leaks whatsoever of where quarterbacks stood on their big board. Now, next in the article, Albert Breer kind of outlined how Bo Nix's pro day was actually advantageous for Denver. It happened right in the beginning and sort of in the no man's land of legal tampering in the official start of NFL free agency, which meant all 32 GMs were not going to stop what they were doing for free agency to go to Eugene to watch a pro day. In fact, Bears head coach Matt Eberflus was the only one at the pro day. And I'm not really sure why the Bears did that. Makes me kind of feel like the Bears were like, let's give Eberflus the wrong schedule so we can make some good decisions for free agency, and let's send him across the country. But the key takeaway from the Bo Nix pro day, which did not have a lot of eyeballs at it, were the Broncos sent their scouts, and they watched the tape later on with Sean Payton and George Payton, and they liked what they saw. But a key thing that the Denver Broncos did was everyone kept their opinions to themselves, not to cloud and muddy the waters of other people's opinions. And so once Sean Payton was asked about, what do you think about Bo Nix? Well, everyone else was quietly like, was quietly, completely, beaming inside about what they saw from Bo Nix's pro day. Here's what Sean Payton said. I really like the guy, I told them. And by then, the Broncos' analytics stuff backed up those feelings with hard facts. I'd heard from another team that the analytics had Nix as the draft's most statistical impressive quarterback. Denver clearly saw it that way too, based on what its own analytics director, Scott Flaska, was bringing back to the football brass. So let's talk about Bo Nix's stats for a moment, because surface level, this guy looks like he should be the first overall pick in the draft, right? He completed nearly 80% of his passes, 4,500 yards, 51 total touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and 0 forced fumbles. You do a blind quarterback resume with the last 10 quarterbacks taken first overall, and I bet a lot of you think Bo Nix is the best of the bunch. So why did he fall to 12, right? Well, it requires some digging, going, all right, yeah, he got some really good stats, but at the same time, when you look beyond just surface level here, you notice only 11% of his passes were 20-plus yards down the field. Michael Penix, for example, was around 20% of his passes. In fact, 2/3 of Bo Nix's passes were either behind the line of scrimmage or within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage. So there is some concern, and fairly so in my opinion, that Bo Nix did not show enough deep ball passes to believe he can make those passes at the next level, which in the NFL, maybe you can get by in college by dumping it off to your running back or your wide receiver and quick screens, and they do all the work for you. But in the NFL, at some point, you do have to deliver a strike down the middle of the field to convert a 3rd and 10. But there's a lot of good things to Bo Nix's game. Zach Stevens tweeted out, Bo Nix was the most accurate quarterback in the draft on sideline throws over 10 yards down the field, according to Sports Info Solutions. Nix was more accurate than Jaden Daniels, Michael Penix, Caleb Williams, Drake May, and J.J. McCarthy. So the big question for Denver, and really for the entire NFL, is can Bo Nix deliver down the field? That is what everyone is wondering. If the answer is yes, then the Broncos got an absolute steal of the draft. If the answer is no, he is what we thought he was based on his college stats, then the Broncos may be looking for a new quarterback in a few years, because that doesn't mean Bo Nix will be an awful quarterback, but it likely means he won't be a franchise quarterback. And when you look at the 2024 quarterback class's average depth of target, meaning whether or not the receiver caught the pass, just how far down from the line of scrimmage were they when the quarterback threw the ball? Caleb Williams, you can see an order of where they were drafted almost, 9.1 yards. Drake May, 11 yards. Jaden Daniels, 10.5. Michael Penix, 10.7. J.J. McCarthy, 9.4. And there's Bo Nix sticking out at 6.8 yards. By far the lowest in this draft class. In fact, if you want to compare Bo Nix to previous round one quarterbacks, he's in his own tier. I mean, look at the other quarterbacks recently who have gone in the first round. Closest one, Mac Jones, 8.8. And I think we're seeing some issues with Mac Jones as a passer down the field. Let's take it even further back in time, right? There are some good examples like Justin Herbert, 8.8, went to the same college as Bo Nix, and there's no question that Justin Herbert can throw the piss out of the football accurately with velocity down the field. But we didn't see that at Oregon, and I think maybe Bo Nix could have the same path as Justin Herbert because he wasn't asked to make those down the field passes similar to Herbert. And ultimately, Herbert is viewed as a bit of a gem in the draft because he was the third quarterback taken in his draft class. I think there is a chance that Bo Nix could become this year's Josh Allen. Now, Josh Allen and Bo Nix don't have the same flaw, right? Bo Nix's flaw is lack of volume downfield. Just haven't seen a whole bunch of passes down from the line of scrimmage. That was not an issue for Josh Allen at Wyoming. He had no problem chucking the pigskin down the field. Josh Allen's problem at Wyoming was completion percentage, right? Lack of accuracy. But the Buffalo Bills believed, hey, we can correct that, and all of a sudden we're going to have a quarterback with very little issues. And sure enough, it's worked out great in Buffalo. So I could see us looking back in a few years going, how did Bo Nix fall in the draft? Well, if you remember, go back in time, it was because no one thought he could complete the deep ball. And he just wasn't asked to do it at Oregon, but he was able to do it all along. That's just not what the coaching staff and the offense called on. So this could be an avenue where we look back at and go, why did Bo Nix fall? Oh, yeah, because we were so obsessed with the ADOT. And maybe we look back and go, why did Bo Nix not succeed? Oh, yeah, because he couldn't complete the ball down the field in college, and Sean Payton, the Broncos, thought he could fix him. And ultimately, that is going to be the difference maker in my eyes as to whether or not Bo Nix is successful in the National Football League. Now, we have more to read from at Albert Breer's article, but first, if you want to get a Bo Nix jersey, he has not announced a number yet. I checked daily, and I'm sure the Broncos would like him to pick a number and sign his NFLPA contract or whatever so that they can start selling these jerseys. But go to chatsports.com/Nix. You can order it right now, and once Bo Nix inevitably makes that number decision and gets all the contracts signed and whatnot, Fanatics will just mail you your jersey immediately. So you're pre-ordering it now, but once the jersey number is in, they will send you your brand new Bo Nix jersey. Get it today. I put that link in the comments and description of today's video. Let's read more from Breer. To combat the fair criticism that Nix came from such a screen/quick game heavy offense, they eliminated throws tagged as givens from the evaluation, as they did with all of the quarterbacks. From there, Payton and Payton got extensive, expansive, advanced stats that elevated Nix above his peers. He was first in 2-minute drills needing points, end of half 2-minute drills, critical fourth quarter 2-minute drives, fourth quarter 2-minute, and importantly, negative play differential. He was second to Rattler in red zone passing. When you read that last bit right there about everything Bo Nix did super well last year at Oregon, that to me screams Sean Payton guy. Not because he is what some people have loosely compared to Drew Brees, doesn't have incredible arm strength, but can get the ball out with accuracy. No, Sean Payton and Drew Brees work so well together because Sean Payton had the utmost trust in Drew Brees in critical moments to make the right decision. Sean Payton did not have that trust in Russell Wilson. Sean Payton was furious throughout the season with Russell Wilson, and we saw that play out in the Lions game where you saw a one-sided screaming match happen because he did not trust in Russell Wilson to execute what he wanted to do in the play call, in the overall game plan from week to week. To me, when you look at what Bo Nix's strengths are, and those are very key important strengths, key situations, end of the half, 2-minute drills, that is where a coach needs faith in his quarterback to execute and deliver what he wants to see done. And Bo Nix did that very well at Oregon. So I'm not surprised that Sean Payton looked at that going, this is my guy. Sure, Michael Penix may be able to throw the ball with more velocity and more accuracy down the field on 1st and 10 on the first play of the game, But maybe that's not what Sean Payton is looking for at the top of his food chain in a quarterback. Maybe it is for trust in the last 2 minutes of the first and second half. Let's continue reading. Payton, and Penner by then knew where things stood on Nix. They also knew they had to keep it to themselves. So on the board in the Denver draft room, all of the quarterbacks were stashed on the bottom left corner in no particular order, both to prevent any sort of bias in discussion and also simply to keep the brass's secret. I live for these draft stories. I don't know about you guys, but I just love in a few years when more stuff trickles out about how this guy ended up where he did. I don't know about to you, but to me, it is just football porn, and I'm consuming it. So for me, the draft stories are always great nuggets that come out, and I'm a big fan of this one. Maybe it will look good or look bad in a few years, but right now, I think it's super cool. So sign me up for more of this stuff here. Lastly, enough people by then had connected the dots to where Denver had to be careful, which is one reason why the Broncos stayed where they were at 12, resisting a trade back, and had mild concern that the Raiders could leapfrog them. Once Penix went at number 8, that killed any idea of a trade down, since it took that option off the table for a Vegas group that had been linked to the Washington quarterback. Denver was locked in, fingers crossed that nothing would change. I know that when the draft pick was made, my biggest critique was I didn't think he would be a guy worth a first-round pick, and I would like to see them trade back, get Bo Nix in round 2 so that if Bo Nix doesn't work out, you're not out a first-round pick this year, which would have been 3 straight years essentially with no first-rounder, and that to me would have been a real, baseball bat to the kneecap. But if Bo Nix is your guy, and Sean Payton early in the draft process said, we don't care where other people think a quarterback should go or a player should go. If we like him, we're going to take him. And I really respect that and admire that in a front office and coaching staff. Because once Mel Kiper, Daniel Jeremiah's of the world drop their first 2 mock drafts, we all get an idea in our head of where guys should go. And it's really hard to shake that idea. But if a coaching staff is absolute that, holy crap, this quarterback, in our eyes, is more than just a good quarterback. We think he is the next 15-year plus starting quarterback for our team. Who cares if some Broncos breakdown YouTuber says get him in round 2? Like, if you believe he's your guy, then by all means, you should not mess around just to get an extra second-round pick out of a trade, move back a couple of spots, and hope he falls to you. Now, if you're not absolute that he is your guy, but you just wanted to take a quarterback and he was the best one available, then I'm going to be critical of that decision. But if Denver believes Bo Nix is the guy, meaning like we see very few flaws in him and we think he's going to be the gem of the draft, and when it's all said and done, he's going to be the second best, the first, the second, or the third best quarterback from this draft class, then yeah, like no problem going with him at pick number 12. You just got to be absolute that he is that good. So if you hope the quarterback run ends with Bo Nix, hit the thumbs up button. We have gone 12 straight videos with over 200 likes. Let's make it 13. Hit the thumbs up button. Help us reach a 13th consecutive video with 200 plus likes. That's going to do it for us on today's show. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you all tomorrow.